Hey guys, if you haven't already, give the video a like, subscribe to my channel. This is a what if series and I'll be doing more down the road, so thank you for watching. Hey guys, and welcome back to What If Deku Was Spider-Man Part 3. So, it's been a while since we've talked about this topic, but I want to further elaborate and get back into the story. Apart from where we left off, now, there will not be a light goal for this video, only because I slacked off a lot. Anyway, that's not the point. Let's get into the story, because I wasted you guys time for some months, and I mean some months. We left off with Deku creating his Spider-Man costume, which is the one you see up on the screen now. And see, look at that drip. Oh my god, look at that drip. And this is given the fact that Deku would be his own version of Spider-Man. I don't think I would see Deku wearing the original red and blue costume like Spider-Man originally wears. No, Deku's not Peter Parker. Deku is his own Spider-Man, just like any other character in the Spider-Verse is their own Spider-Man. Anyway, so we move up with Deku creating his own costume, which is the one you see up on the screen now. This is when All Might comes running into the classroom saying, "I am here!" And this is where he announces the battle trial arc. The students would all get into their costumes, with Deku's being the one that stands out the most. Now, because with Deku's costume standing out the most, because some of the kids there know him as the vigilante hero Spider-Man, and he's gathering his thoughts and looking around and thinking in his head, is this really a good idea? Should he have done this? Should he have basically been so carefree about his identity? Well, it's basically something he'll have to worry about in the near future. So as Deku is getting settled, doing his stretches and everything, Tsuyu is going to be on his team. So it's going to be Deku, Tsuyu, Bakugou, and Tenya Ida. Why did I change it without Uraraka on there? Because I feel like Tsuyu would be a good counterpart for Deku, and basically someone he could get to know way more earlier on. Keep in mind, let me know if you like this Tsuyu route or you want me to pick a different route. Anyway, so as Tsuyu and Deku enters the battle trial building, and they get ready for it, they notice that, Deku himself noticed that Bakugou is going to come charging at him at any given moment, since he wants to fight him and prove that he's better than him or something like that. Whatever will handle his ego. So as Tsuyu basically hears the plan from Deku, and he runs down how he wants her to basically get there as fast as she can, because he's going to be battling Bakugou, and at some point in time, he's going to redirect Bakugou's arm upwards to the point where it explodes the ground beneath the bomb, to the point where that's her cue. That's her cue to basically charge at the bomb. Anyway, so as Deku hears Bakugou come shooting down the hall like a crackhead, this is where Tsuyu jumps away, and Deku gets into a spider-like stance, and that both of them clash, going blow for blow with each other, not wasting any time. So Deku and Bakugou are going for hand to hand. Deku is dodging Bakugou's explosions, Bakugou is dodging Deku's webs, and these two have been fighting a long time, so they got counters to each other's abilities. Deku kicks Bakugou in the side, and Bakugou punched Deku in the stomach, and both of them got sent flying back. Now, both of them would then retaliate and charge right back at each other, throwing off huge punches. Deku's not holding back, and Bakugou is not either, and he's enhancing his punches with his explosions, and Deku's enhancing his punches with his strength. So both of them are just tagging each other dead in the face, in the stomach, in the everywhere possible. These boys are going at it. Now, Deku gets punched back from Bakugou, and Bakugou sends an explosion that Deku blocks, and it basically battle damaged some of his suits. Now, Deku, sees those gauntlets on Bakugou's arms are a nuisance. Deku charges at Bakugou and breaks one of the gauntlets. I mean, he smashes one of the gauntlets to pieces. Now, imagine All Might. Deku basically uses his strength to smash one of those gauntlets and break them apart. Now, as these two are going all out, Tsuyu manages to get to the area where the bomb is, and Tenya is doing his whole villainous act like he did in the canon, and Tsuyu would reply with, he's really taking this seriously. I mean, the acting part mostly. Anyway, so as Bakugou and Deku's battle is coming to a climax, the both of them get into a finger lock with each other, and they would explode and just go into a whole fist for all. And this is where Deku would come up, do the idea, and he would hope that Tsuyu is up where the bomb is, and he redirects Bakugou's arm up that was directed at him, and redirects the explosion upwards. This is where the explosion happens under the ground, and basically this is where Tsuyu releases her tongue. Well, basically releases her tongue and attaches to the bomb. like how she does, like how Frog does. Anyway, the hero team would have won the battle trial arc, and this is where Deku would be dancing and saying, "I won, I beat you again, I beat you again." This would piss Bakugo off, but this is where Bakugo would just clench his fist, and he wants to charge at Deku again and say, "Oh, you want to fight some more? Let's continue on. I got plenty of energy." And this is where Bakugo would just turn his back and say, "Screw you, you damn nerd. I'll get you next time." And he would walk away. So as Deku is just looking at Bakugo, and he says, "What's wrong with you, Kachan? Are you mad that you're getting beaten by me? Or is it something deeper? I wonder what it is." Now, as Deku, where they basically won the battle trial, this is where Bakugo would be walking away from the school and he would be crying. This is where he would look at Deku like All Might and he would say, like he would just be tears coming out of his eyes because he doesn't like losing it, but he feels like he would be worthless or he has nothing to stand up against. As he sees All Might, and All Might gives him some words of encouragement, and this is what refueled Bakugo's resolve to the point where he wants to become a great hero. He wants to be better than All Might and better than Deku, and he's going to train his hardest to prove that point. And this is where Bakugo just walks away. All Might looks at him and says, "Yes, young Bakugo." Now, Deku and All Might would be face to face, and this is where All Might stops Deku from going home, because this is where All Might tells Deku that he's been keeping his eye on him. He's been watching him from since the the entrance exam, and this is where All Might would look at Deku and say, "Young man, I've been watching you from afar, and you have the embodiments. You have the ideology to become a great hero, to become someone who can inspire the world, to become someone who has hope for others, to protect them when they need the most protecting. You have great power, and with that great power comes great responsibility." Deku would look up at All Might, and he would see a flash, like he would see pictures, like flashes of his Uncle Ben. And this is where Deku would fall to his knees and break down crying. Because those words that All Might said just cut deep. They felt so good to hear. With great power comes great responsibility. Deku's eyes were just flooded with tears. And this is where All Might would say that I choose you as becoming my new successor. I want you to inherit my power. Deku would look up at All Might and say, "How? Is your power transferable?" or something like that. And this is where All Might would go into explaining One for All with Deku and the abilities that had been passed down from successor to successor, making All Might the 8th successor. This is where Deku would look at All Might and he would say, "Okay, I'll become your successor." So as Deku and All Might go to Dagobah Beach, this is where an elderly man would be there as well to help out with Izuku's training. So as All Might, basically, he gave Deku One for All, but by pulling out his hair and say, "Eat this," and Deku, basically, he does, but he still gives All Might a weird look. So as he eats the hair, and after 30 minutes go by, they continue on his training with One for All. And this is where Gran Torino tells Deku to basically focus the power, and before we train, make sure the power is in conjunction with your spider-like powers. I already know that you have another power, but make sure it's in conjunction with your spider-like powers. And this is where Deku would say, okay, so basically flooding the power all throughout my body and mixing with my spider-like powers. I see what you mean. So Deku would get a grasp of what Full Cow is, and off the bat he would have had 10% of Full Cow due to his spider-like natures enhancing his body and his durability. So he would be at a 10%. And this is where All Might and Gran Torino would be training him. He would be clearing the beach, but this would be on a weekend, and this would be like a 3-day weekend. So he would be training on the beach, cleaning the beach up, resting, and just doing that. And Gran Torino and All Might would be training Deku very vigorously for the past 3 days just to get a handle on his power, just to get him comfortable with using it, and not to go too overboard. It would be times where Deku would strain his body, but it wouldn't go beyond that. He would feel the strain of it. Anyway, so as the training commences on the last day of the training with All Might and Gran Torino, Deku would have got a grasp of his full Cal ability, and he would have increased it to about 13%. Now, Deku's at a 13% full Cal, and he's just been practicing mixing it with his spider-like abilities, and given the fact that Deku has One for All added to his Spider-Man powers, This could potentially be a strong ass Spider-Man. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. See, with One for All, you know how it enhances the user's powers or quirks or whatever that person has with their base powers. Spider-Man has a spider sense, so Deku is gonna be hard to sneak up on, let alone hit at the same time. And his durability is gonna be something incredible. His speed is gonna be something incredible, and his agility, oh my god. So Deku was testing out all these abilities, and Deku would jump up in the air with just his regular abilities with not One for All activated, and he would reach 100 feet in the air. Now Deku would use One for All at full cal, that's fluctuating throughout his body, One for All at 13%, and he would jump into the air, reaching approximately 20,000 feet in the air. Deku is astonished by this, and he's not too, not too shocked by it, but he is shocked that he's doing this, since All Might himself could leap like high distances too. But anyway, as Deku was testing out most of his abilities and combining them with One for All, sorry about that, but in most of his abilities and combining them with One for All, Deku would just be experimenting most likely. Anyway, so as that all commences, Deku has finished his training with Gran Torino and All Might, but not necessarily finished, because he still has a few more days, because Gran Torino wants to teach him a few more tricks and teach him some other abilities about his One for All, One for All and Spider-like powers. Deku looks at his wrist as he's walking home, and he sees like these black web-like markings on his wrist, and he sprays his webs, but like he takes off his web shooters and he sprays his webs, and he sees like this black tendrils of webs stick to the wall, and he's not familiar with them since the webbing that he used was just clear or like white or something like that. Deku's saying that this must be some kind of strong like webbing that he's basically have in his arsenal, and you all know what that is. Anyway, so we now start the whole USJ battle, like the whole USJ arc, with all the students getting on the bus, every student getting their costume, with Shoto Aizawa announcing it. Now Deku would just be sitting back taking a nap, and this is where Suyu would basically be nitpicking at Bakugo, saying that Bakugo doesn't even have the whole hero basically ideology. I mean, he's more described as a villain. I mean, I think he'd become a villain too. Bakugo jumps up and threatens to kick Suyu's ass, and that's basically answer her question when she says, "See what I mean?" This is where Deku would open his eye and say, "Bakugo, you need to calm down. You're too much of a hothead. You're never going to become a great hero with that kind of attitude, loser." This is where Bakugo would right hook Deku in the face, and Deku would jump up and kick Bakugo dead in the stomach, and these two would start having a fist battle with each other. Kirishima and Tinya Ida would come and pull both of them apart, and they would just be trying to reach for each other, and Deku and Bakugo would be just looking at each other like with angry scowls. Now, these two will be hot-headed enough, but Deku wouldn't be that much so hot-headed. I mean, he has a calm personality and like a smart boy personality. Anyway, without that being said, we now enter the USJ arc. Now we're going to do a little flashback, a little time skip, not time skip, like a little flashback to where the League of Villains were. So the League of Villains were in their basically designed bar, and this is where Shigaraki will be meeting with All For One. Now, All For One would tell Shigaraki about taking Alexi and taking the Nomu with him. Shigaraki would question him and saying, "Is Alexi even ready? Has he even managed to get into that whole suit that you made?" And this is where All For One would say, "Oh, he's more than ready. And I feel like he's more than capable of keeping up with All Might. I don't think All Might would be able to keep up with Alexi and the Nomu." Now, this is where we now flash back to the USJ, and that purple portal would open, and this is where Deku's spider sense would go crazy as Shigaraki and a whole bunch of villains would come out. Now, this is where the students would say, "Oh, they got real villains too?" Now, Shota Aizawa will get into a fighting stance and say, those are real villains. Not that they saying they got actors as villains. Shota Aizawa will tell them that those are real villains, and this is where he will get into a fighting stance. Now, Deku will get into a spider-like stance only to see Shigaraki looking at him and saying, "Oh, it's that vigilante hero Spider-Man." Deku would be like, "Who are you and why are you attacking us? What would he ever do to you?" Shigaraki would announce that he's here to kill All Might, to put an end to All Might, the symbol of peace, so that the villains can rise in the world and create a new world order. So, now, All of a sudden, the portal opens behind Shigaraki, and the Rhino comes out, and the Nomu comes out. Now Shoto Aizawa is doing his best. Some of the students are helping out as they can too, but Shigaraki basically tells Alexi, "Hey, Alexi, I know what that kid over there is capable with. Won't you keep him busy?" And Alexi would be in his Rhino costume, and he would look at Deku, and Deku would look at him and saying, "Okay, this not be good. That guy is huge." So the Rhino would charge at Deku, and Deku would dodge the Rhino, basically landing on his back and kicking him to the ground, using One for All. And Deku would basically punch the Rhino dead into a wall. Now this is where the Rhino would come charging back at Deku and deliver two thunderous blows to Deku's stomach and the side of his rib cage, and basically cracking a few ribs. Now Deku would feel the impact from Rhino's punches, and that would hurt. Deku is durable to an extent, but hey, that's Rhino. And let me also tell you something. Rhino was with All For One, so you don't know what kind of enhances that I might reveal in the next episode. Anyway, so as Rhino and Deku are basically going at it with each other, going blow for blow, throwing off various attacks, Shoto Aizawa is doing his best to keep up with all the League of Villains until the Nomu arrived and just hit him, just smacked him against the wall and then smacked him against the ground and then grabbed his arm and broke it. Now, this is where the Nomu would be sitting on Shoto Aizawa's back, and this is where Shigaraki would come and basically decay Shoto Aizawa's elbow. Deku would be looking over to his teacher, getting basically manhandled by these two, and Deku's increased One for All to 20% throughout his whole body, and the strain from it was heavy as him and the Rhino are going very at it. Now Deku is not taking this as a joke anymore. I mean, he was joking and bragging with Rhino, calling him names and pissing him off, but at this point right now, he's not joking anymore. He wants to basically end this so he can get to Shoto Aizawa as fast as he can, but because if he doesn't, Shoto Aizawa is going to die. So Deku needs to do something. He needs to come up with a plan. And he kicks Rhino off of him as Rhino was holding Deku down. And he says full counting 20%. And just charges the Rhino with a various amounts of blows, punching him in the face, grabbing him by his leg, and slamming him into the ground. Now this would basically stun Alexi to a point to where Deku charges at the Nomu and kicks the Nomu deadly off. Well, not necessarily. The Nomu grabbed Deku by the foot and flicked him away. I mean, 20% was not enough to do anything to the Nomu. Because you've seen how 100% wasn't enough. So this is where Deku would look at this and he's saying, if I don't do something, what can I do? What can I do? Deku would say, full cowling. 100%. And this is where Deku would channel full cowling all through his body at 100%. And his body would glow. His costume would start to glow a light green as the energy would fluctuate throughout the costume. Well, you know what I mean. It would make his costume have a glowing effect to it. Now, Deku's costume is badly damaged and his mask is halfway torn. As you see, Deku's hair is standing up and his eyes are fluctuating with this green energy. Deku charges at the Nomu and punches the Nomu off of Shoto Aizawa. This is when All Might comes in and he looks at battle damage Deku, and he sees the Nomu went flying. Now this is where Deku would look at All Might and says, "Please, All Might, help! Help! Get that Nomu guy. I have this other guy over here. He's only stunned. I just need help right now. I can't focus on both of them. I don't know how much longer I can hold up." All Might seeing how Izuku is trying to keep his bearings, and Shigaraki is right there as he backed away from it. When the Nomu got punched by Izuku at 100%, Shigaraki basically backed away from that whole scuffle because the wind force from it sent him flying back. Not he backed away, it sent him flying back. So as Shigaraki is gathering his bearings, he gathered his steps, and this is where All Might would be challenging the Nomu, charging at the Nomu, fighting the Nomu, going toe-to-toe with the Nomu. And this is where All Might would say that he has to go beyond his power. Deku is at 100% and fighting Alexi, as the both of them are going blow for blow with each other, but Deku having the upper hand over the Rhino. Now, this is where the Rhino would be trying to throw punches at Deku, but Deku would be basically dodging it. And this is where both All Might and Deku would be up in the sky and All Might would throw the Nomu into the ground, and same with Deku throwing Alexi into the ground. Now, both of them would land with a crash to the ground, and they would gather all the energy into their hands, or to their fist. You know the scene in anime. they would gather all the energy into their fist, and you would see like this huge glow or this huge starlight glow around their fist, and they would punch each enemy into the stomach, yelling plus ultra, sending Rhino and the Nomu flying out of the USJ, changing the weather and causing a little disruption of the ground shaking. Now, this is where Shigaraki would basically be in a stalemate. Well, not a stalemate, a checkmate, since both of his key players are basically sent flying out of the building, and he would think they cheated. This is what Kurogiri would tell them, that they have to retreat. Now, Kurogiri would have still had teleported some of the students away, but he just couldn't get Deku. He couldn't teleport him away because he was too fast for him. Anyway, as everything calmed down, as Deku basically had a few broken ribs, and now he has a few broken ribs, broken arms, and he was heavily battle damaged. Now, he fell to the ground unconscious after he threw the Nomu, not the Nomu, punched Rhino out of the building. Now, this is where All Might buff form would be basically like he would start letting off steam, and the teachers would basically shield All Might from getting his identity revealed to the students. And this is why like all the teachers would arrive. And Shigaraki, Kurogiri basically sensed that they were outmatched at this point, so it was really nothing that they could do at this point. Anyway, so they retreated and everything went per normal as they did in the anime. Deku got healed by Recovery Girl, and All Might basically just recovered by himself. This is where Deku and All Might would have a serious talk with each other about All for One. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave me a like and leave me as many likes as you can. This video is like, I guess, 21 minutes long. It might be more than that. Anyway, without any further ado, you guys have a good day, a good night, and plus ultra. Good night, guys.